We're live.
And welcome back to another episode of Chuck and Shoop.
Yes,
I am
sir.
Chuck,
I'm Shoop.
and we're just gonna confuse the hell out of you today.
Yeah, that's how we do it. Get you
We got
thinking.
we got a great episode. We did this last year. We did a little college football preview, a little rundown. Went pretty well. One of Chuck's sleepers teams ended up being the sleeper team in TCU. So he might be looking for a little rerun this year. Ain't that right?
Oh, I'm ready. I got some teams that are looking to make a buzz. So I'm ready to share that.
Yes, but before we share our college football predictions, we have a little bit of buzz going around about some W's and some L's that have been happening
Yeah.
around the league, around the world, that is.
Oh yeah.
We're going to do a little different. We're going to start with the L's today. So, Chuck, hit us with your L and let's get this shit started.
This actually might be L of the month. I don't know if anybody has heard this. Everybody should hear about this. This is a huge story right now. Remember The Blind Side, right, Shoop? Very good movie. That was like
Great movie.
2008. Sandra Bullock, she did a great job. It's a story about left tackle Michael Orr. He gets adopted by this family, and then he goes on to have a successful football career after this family adopts him and shows him the way. But now it just turns out that that whole movie was an entire lie. And it's actually insane to hear this today because I love that movie. And now I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, that was all a lie. Like, Jesus Christ. The story is that um so Michael Orr, whose life depicted on the 2009 film, says in a lawsuit that he was never fully adopted by the family, the Tuohys, that took him in, and he was swindled into signing away his decision-making powers at 18. And it's called a conservatorship. And I did like research into this, a little research, but mostly like they just signed this thing, and the whoever takes care of him or whatever has rights to all his financial earnings. So now he's suing the family, and it's a fucking shitstorm. And that movie was all a lie, the Blind Side lie. So
Chuck,
that's terrible.
I've seen this way too many times where they have the most obvious setups for the most obvious sequels. So when we see Blindside 2, Electric Boogaloo come out in theaters in like 6 months, we'll know what the real setup was. But yeah, anyway, very, 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 very shitty situation all around. Huge L to the Orr family to taking advantage of a kid who didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I mean, this was an already wealthy family, and now they just
Yeah,
have more dollar signs in their eyes. It's straight corrupt. And
they're definitely going to hell. So that's fucked up.
yeah, and I can't imagine how he feels after finding out, either finding out about this now, or like if he hadn't found about it, but he kept it secret. It's a lot to take in, especially now that football is way past him. So that's,
There's definitely always more to the story, but he should definitely get his money for at least the movie. Because what I was reading, he didn't get shit from the movie. So
oh yeah, he needs to. I
yeah,
mean, he wasn't very good at left tackling in NFL, to be fair. So wherever he can get the money from, he should do
facts.
that. Um, so my L is gonna go to for some preseason football. And we had some good action this past weekend. We had a lot of starters play. We had a lot of interesting rookies play. But one guy I was very interested in seeing was one Trey Lance, who was the former third overall pick. And in my eyes, it never really felt like he got a fair shot at the starting job. He was back up to Jimmy G. They let him sit, and then he gets hurt in his second ever game. And Brock Purdy comes in and steals the show. So I'm like, is this Trey Lance hate deserved? Well, he went up against Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders' fourth round rookie backup. And yet it was O'Connell who looked like the third overall pick, and
Yeah.
not Lance. Lance had some very ugly throws, including his touchdown, which bounced off the hands of a defender and was thrown in the middle of two defenders, somehow landed in the 49ers' arms for a touchdown. But Lance's biggest problem was that he was just holding onto the ball way too long. He was sacked 4 times in that preseason action. And it's not like the Raiders had some ferocious pass rush that they were
No.
sending out there. It Lance, he looks like a guy that hasn't played a lot of football in the last 4 years. And he hasn't. I mean, he didn't really play
No.
that. He didn't have a ton of starts at North Dakota State. And since coming to the NFL, he's barely started. And it's really showing. And you wonder like a bunch of things about Trey Lance. Like, why does his hairline look like it does at his age? And why what has he been doing this entire time?
Yeah,
Trying to get ready. Is he really about to get beat out by Sam Darnold for the QB2 job?
definitely.
It it's an L for Trey Lance, but it's really an L for the 49ers
Hmm.
because they traded all that draft capital to go up and get him, and they're not using him. And I guess they kind of got lucky by having literally the last pick in the draft perform like they did. But they better hope he's not some sort of one season wonder and he actually keeps up, because otherwise, now the Niners, we're going to talk about a great roster that just never got the QB right.
And that would be terrible if their season ended because a quarterback literally botched in one game or the last play of the season. And also like him not playing a lot of games, like real quick, he played 2 games in college in 2020. 2021, he started, I think, like maybe 3 and then got injured last year. So like really 5 full game experiences in 4 years. I don't think that's really going to cut it for a starting quarterback of a team of that caliber.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, I guess he's getting paid, so he
Yeah.
better start buying up that road game. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he'll have money for that. He'll have money for that.
Yeah. So we were gonna go to W's, but we have a big W that's gonna combine for both of us. And that is, surprise, it's our college football rankings. No more W's and L's. We're gonna cook right into this. College football is coming up very quickly around the corner. We got about less than 2 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
Uh, until week 0 and Notre Dame and Navy
August
square off.
26th, baby.
We are all very excited, and I know you guys are thinking, what's the point of this? Don't the same teams win every year? Well, they do, but we're still going to cover it all.
Oh,
So before we get into the thick of it, let's summarize it up. Chuck, going into this college football season, what is your headline?
my headline right off the bat is: can teams leaving their conferences this year, Power 5 teams, can they be successful to end the year strong moving out of their conferences? Can these teams that are leaving prove to us fans that they're worth leaving their own conferences? They can end dominating their own conferences and then come into the next conference and be just as competitive as the one they were just in. So I'm looking at, I'm looking at teams like from the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-4. Oregon's going to the Big Ten. UCLA is going to the Big Ten. USC is going to the Big Ten. Washington's going to the Big Ten. And then we got also leaving Pac-12. Arizona is going to the Big 12. Arizona State going to the Big 12. I don't know why the fuck Colorado's leaving, but I guess because of Dion, who knows? But they're going to the Big 12. Utah's going to the Big 12. And then there's Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC. God knows if they can survive in that conference. Like, if these teams can't all be at least like 9 or at most 9-win, like if they're not a 9-win team, like these teams leaving, like I don't know how it's going to shape up for these teams leaving the conference. How are they gonna, like, how are these, like, isn't the Big 12 going to be like a 16 team conference? I don't know how they're going to orchestrate the playoffs, what have you. Like, it's going to be a shit show. I'm here for it. I'm here for it, but it's going to be a shit show if these teams aren't competitive whatsoever. So my whole thing is I'm expecting a lot of these teams to come out on top in their conferences if they're talking a big game about moving on to a more prominent conference. So we'll see how the Power Five pans out this season.
Hey, and if anyone out there has watched the Johnny Manziel documentary that recently came out on Netflix, one thing that they go over was how Texas A&M was in the midst of transition into the SEC, and they were not expected to compete at all, and it was looked at as a very bad move. And then Manziel mania happens, and Texas A&M now kind of remains like a perennial power in the SEC. Can any of these teams create that magic? You know, if I'm going to point to any teams to talk about, I'm looking right at Colorado with the new coach
Mm-hmm.
and his ability to pull in recruits like Colorado has never seen before. And the Big 12 is, especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, it's kind of wide open.
Oh yeah.
So one of those teams could definitely take over. My headline going into this year. So we had a slew of quarterbacks go at the top of the draft, but the main ones, of course, being C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. And then you look at the other two guys in the playoff picture with Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan. They're also in the NFL draft. So this year, more than other years, it's sort of like it seems like there's a lack of familiar faces at the top.
Hmm.
You have Caleb Williams, who, by all means, is probably the Heisman favorite, um, and his U.S. team will be highly ranked. But all the
Yeah.
other highly ranked teams, all of them are going through quarterback battles right now. Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama's got a three-way quarterback battle right now. Yeah, all these teams are looking to replace very high-level talent, and if not Caleb Williams, someone's going to step up and have to make a name for themselves in order to really put themselves in that Heisman picture. So that's going to kind of lead me into my next point, Chuck.
Yeah.
Um, who do you think could be like that breakout player that takes college football by storm this year? Give me a couple guys.
So guys I got right now, this quarter, honestly, we'll start with the quarterback position. I think Tennessee can have just as equal or better than the season they just had this past season with an even better guy than Hooker. His name is I forgot his first name, but Milton. So last name's Milton. I'm pretty sure he's a freshman, and I think this guy can throw the ball fucking 80 yards in the pocket, like downfield. I saw this one throw. It was in the late game, but like guy threw it on the money and it was hanging in the air for maybe like a whole ass minute. And I think they can just explode onto the field and take over. He's super athletic. I also got Trey Benson from Florida. I don't know any other running backs besides Shipley from Clemson or maybe Trey Benson. I think is going to go off from Florida State. And win the Doak Walker Award for best running back in college football. So I think those two. And then another guy I think who is also going to go off, who's very efficient last year. His name's Harold Perkins Jr. out of LSU. He's a D end. And I think LSU has the guys on defense and on offense to go far. So those are my three.
I like those. I'm going to go with one guy on the offensive end, one guy on the defensive end. My offensive guy is going to be Dorian Singer. He's a wide receiver from USC. He's a transfer from Arizona, so cross-conference foe. And he put up over 1,000 yards in his sophomore year with the Wildcats. So he does that, and now he goes to play with Caleb Williams, who just lost his top target in Jordan Addison. So the target's got to funnel somewhere. I think Singer is a great candidate for that, and he'll definitely have something to prove, playing against his former conference foes. And on the defensive side, Michael Williams from Georgia
Mm.
if you're really into college football recruiting, this isn't going to be a breakout name to you, but on the national scale, Georgia had to replace so much talent on the defensive end this offseason with all the players they lost to the draft.
Yeah.
Michael Williams was the number 4 overall recruit in 2022, and he did get some snaps in his freshman year, and he had something like a 20% win rate when he was on the field with his snaps, which for a defensive end,
Jeez.
like you're beating your guy 1 out of 5 times as a freshman. And with all the guys gone, he's going to get plenty more playing time. It won't be long till his name is in the national spotlight. So I like those two guys
I
to be
can't wait.
breakout candidates. I already talked about Caleb Williams. I think he's my Heisman favorite. Do you agree, or do you see anyone else possibly?
I also have Caleb Williams. I also saw you wrote down Drake May, but I actually like that pick too for Heisman.
Oh yeah, definitely. If Drake, and we'll talk about key games coming right up, but the ACC is very much going to be a battle this year. It's not clear cut who's going to win this league.
Yeah.
And Drake May's got a couple opportunities to prove himself. First versus South Carolina early in the season,
Yep.
and then in the penultimate game of the season against Clemson. If North Carolina wins the games that they should win, I mean, it's going to be kind of on the defense to step up because they were horrific last year on the defensive end. But May was better in his freshman year than Sam Howell was in his best year. And Sam Howell is a starting quarterback in the NFL right now.
Mhm.
Drake May is getting a lot of buzz to be a potential top 5 pick in this upcoming draft, and for good reason. He's super athletic. He possesses all the traits that a modern quarterback should have nowadays, with the great arm and rushing ability. Um, it's can he elevate the players around him, and uh, will he be able to compete against these great Clemson, Florida State defenses?
True.
But he's kind of a sexy pick for someone who doesn't want to go Caleb Williams. But
Yeah, I like that.
yeah, but Caleb Williams is right now a consensus number 1 overall for a reason. Super polished, uh, just elite playmaker. So I'm excited to see both of them this year. So
Yeah.
let's start talking about conferences. So as the conferences stand before we go into this whole jambalaya of conference changes next year. So we're gonna go conference by conference and talk who we think's gonna win. So let's start. Let's go out west first. Let's go with the Pac-12.
hmm
In its final year before its demise, who takes the crown?
So for the Pac-4, I'm gonna take USC. I'm gonna take USC. Obviously, Caleb Williams. Also defensively, I think they have guys in the secondary who can play. And then I don't know that their schedule isn't really that good. I think they just have to take care of Utah, and I think they have an easy run in.
Yeah, watch out
Oh,
for
and
Washington.
Notre Dame. They have to play Notre Dame as well. What am I saying?
Well, yeah, that'll be a tough game. Watch out for Washington too if Michael Penix Jr. Uh, that team will be uh, a force once again, but USC's got Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. It's a lethal combo,
Yeah.
um, and they they came pretty close last year. They're upset by Utah.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about a little revenge, especially
Exactly.
for someone who's looking to prove themselves. Prove themselves the number 1 draft pick in the NFL next year. I got USC.
100%.
Yeah. Moving on to the middle of the country in the Big 12. Got a couple teams at the top that I think could win, but who are you going with?
I like everybody's picking Texas. A lot of people also have Kansas State because of their offensive line. But Kansas State lost Deuce Vaughn. Texas, I don't know. I feel like they're just like a snake bitten organization right now, college football team. They have to play Alabama. Oklahoma, if you look at their schedule, they play nobody out of conference. And on their side of the Big 12, they also don't play anybody. So they just have to beat Texas. And that game is on a neutral site. So I think Oklahoma is a shoe into their conference game. They just got to win that game. So I think Oklahoma wins it.
Yeah, Oklahoma had a very disappointing year last year, but they're going to
Yeah.
try to get things on track to to bolster their hopes going to SEC next year. But I just look at this Texas team, and they're just so loaded on offense.
They are stacked.
We know about Quinn Ewers, but they have two amazing receiving prospects in Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders. Sanders being a tight end. So even with Bijan Robinson gone, uh, they're still going to be able to move the chains effectively. And they got some talent on the defensive front too. It's going to be hard to run the ball against them. So I like Texas, but I do agree that Oklahoma might be a little bit slept on this year because of how poorly they performed. But I could definitely see them being a bounce back candidate. And
They
I don't
got
see.
yeah, what are you saying? Sorry.
I was going to say I don't see with the amount of talent that Kansas State and TCU lost. I don't see either of them coming close to their championship appearance last year.
I agree. And I was just about to add, Oklahoma also they got like 8 transfers for defense. So hopefully they improve on defense because that was what killed them last year, which was insane.
Yeah, that would be big. Now moving on to Big Ten. Big Ten has been a two-horse race for quite some time, even though
Yeah.
those two teams kind of reside in the same division. And they're the AP poll came out today, and those teams are 2 and 3. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming you're gonna go with one of those teams or maybe a dark horse.
I'm actually gonna go, even though I am an Ohio State fan, I'm gonna go with Michigan because I think they just have the better roster all around, and they got the quarterback all situated with McNamara, and then Blake Corum's coming back. Um, and on defense, I'm pretty sure they have mostly all their starters coming back too. Ohio State, it's only like I feel like it's just the quarterback position that's the big question mark for Ohio State. And as well, I mean, they do have Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mbuke. How did I say his name right?
Meka Egbuka.
Ebuka.
Yes,
So
sir.
and then you have Iowa who will just run the ball down your throat and like play good, really good defense and always upset either Michigan or Ohio State. And then, I mean, and then there's Penn State, but no, but Penn State's overrated. So I am going to go with Michigan because I just think they have the better team.
Yeah, it's I just can't even from a non-biased perspective.
Yeah.
I really just can't imagine Ryan Day keeping his job if Ohio
Yeah.
State does not beat Michigan this year. No
Yeah.
matter
Definitely
how
not.
well, how many times they make the playoffs, um, it's a big deal for the tables to turn like that. And I really think it's got to get in some of these players' heads. Like we can't let them get us again. So that's my reasoning for taking Ohio State. Although it's not just a quarterback situation, but their whole offensive line got purged in the draft as well.
Yeah.
Both their tackles, their center. There's going to be a lot of changes up front there,
Harris
but I do trust.
Johnson.
I do trust the development. The weapons are just unbelievable. Like
Yeah. It's
once
gross.
again, Marvin Harrison and Egbuka, the
Running
two of them,
backs.
they're going to be first round receivers again. Travion Henderson will be a first round running back. Uh, they're if they can get good production out of their secondary, because that's
Mm,
what's killed them against the game against Michigan.
yeah.
Then the tables might turn in their favor this year. But it's hard to say. I'm not biased, so
No, I'm
I'll just
with
leave it
you.
at that.
And
Uh,
I meant to say McCarthy. I don't know why I said McNamara.
I was gonna say that, but I think McNamara was like a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
They gotta stop getting Irish
It's the same
quarterbacks.
guy. It's just the same guy.
Yeah, they're fucking clones. Um, let's go. Let's go to ACC. ACC is a very intriguing one. I think we got 3 teams at the top who are making all the headlines. So out of them, or maybe not of them, maybe you got a surprise team. Who do you think is your winner?
I got ACC. I got Clemson. And hot take here, they might go. I think they might go 15-0. because not only do they have I mean, they got the great running back with Shipley. I think they still have a good D line. They have one of the top linebacker cores in the country. I forgot their names, but one of them's number 17. But also, I think I don't think like I'm trying to think of other teams that have superior defenses to Clemson in that conference. I think Clemson just wipes the floor with every other defense, and then I mean matchup wise, like everyone's going to throw the football. I feel like in that conference, so I think they're just going to have a field day. And also, their quarterback situation. I don't know. His last name's Kublik or something. He might start, but there's also another guy. Um, Forgot his last name. Vincenzo or something. It's Italian, but he also might be a stud. So watch out for that quarterback situation in Clemson. So they got Shipley, and they're gonna fucking run around everybody.
I I really wanted to put North Carolina here because of the Drake May hype, but I just don't think they have enough recruiting talent on that defense. Um, and you didn't go for Florida State, and Florida State is uh, I love Florida State this year. They've done a really good job rebuilding this program. And Jordan Travis coming in this year, I think he's going to be one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch in all of college football. And
Mm.
he's got absolutely terrific weapons too. Trey Benson at running back, Johnny Wilson at wide receiver. And then you got potentially the best defensive player in all of college football, and Jared Verse on the D end. Uh, there's a lot of talent that has years of playing with each other, and I'm just not very sold on Clemson. You did mention that they got a couple studs at quarterback, but it's the program isn't where it was a few years ago, and I think it's right for the taking for either Florida State or North Carolina, whoever steps up. But I think
Mm.
Florida State's got a little bit more NFL talent that will help them squeak by. All
Coaching
right.
too. I do like the Florida State's coach.
Yeah, who know? That was a little crazy. That was a little too like he's a bit of a whack job. A
Yeah,
little bit for my liking.
he is whack job. I
All
like
right.
that.
Yeah. And we're gonna end things off with the SEC for our division predictions. Is anyone topping Georgia?
I got LSU. I got LSU all the way. I think they have a very easy schedule. I was looking at it. I think they beat Alabama again. Again, I'm basing it off the quarterback situation. Jalen Daniels, I think he's just going to go off, and then um, Kelly's going to have his guys in the order. I believe in him coming off his first year where he beat Alabama. I think he'll do it again. Um, I think they go 12-0 or 11-1. And then they get to the championship, and hopefully one of my dark horses, hopefully they play South Carolina. Or are they I don't think they're in the same. Are they in the same?
Uh, I think they are. I think they do play.
But okay, but mentioning a dark horse, South Carolina.
Yeah, then that may or may not be correct, and we'll fact check that later. But yeah, shout out Spencer Rattler rebounding his career.
Yeah.
But I think Georgia is starting to turn into the new Alabama with the amount of defensive talent that they've accumulated. Um, and I really like Carson Beck. I think he's a prime candidate to become a Heisman contender out of this whole group of quarterbacks competing against each other. Yeah,
Mm.
Alabama's got a lot of uncertainty right now. They're definitely a little bit shook from uh, the Georgia uprising, and there's a three quarterback battle going on, and nobody has a lead right now, which is a little bit concerning considering where we are at this point in the offseason.
Yeah.
So a lot of
See what
uncertainty there.
happens.
A lot of uncertainty there. I like LSU, but they have a very tough schedule, especially playing Florida State in a neutral site. So they would have to make up a lot of ground in the tough SEC in order to be able to accomplish winning the SEC. I think Georgia's got They have an extremely easy out of conference schedule. So if they just run through the rest of their games, which the hardest game is at Tennessee, and that's really it, and they
Yeah,
win the SEC championship, I think it's a cakewalk for them.
I like that. Okay.
Right. So before we end things, uh, we will finish off of our top four. Um, but let's get some bold predictions in for this season. What's one thing that you think will one bold prediction you have for the college football season?
Bold prediction. I would say Notre Dame winning the national championship.
That they have a very difficult schedule too. They got to play Ohio State and USC.
Yeah. They have
That's
they have the entire resume shoot. They got the quarterback. They got the best class in from 2022. So this year they're all redshirt freshmen or sophomores, or actually, yeah, they're all they would be redshirt freshmen. So I am expecting a lot. They only lost their best player was their tight end, and then they got an upgrade with a prolific quarterback in in Sam Hartman. I'm pretty sure. But so
yeah.
I'm locked in on Notre Dame.
Um, let's see. For my bold prediction, and this is gonna like, I think it's gonna shock you a little bit. Uh, but I think there's a very good chance that Penn State surprises and
Oh,
wins.
they're my
Win.
overrated team.
I I love the talent on this team, and I could easily see a scenario where Michigan and Ohio State cannibalize each other. I mean, Ohio State's got to play. They got to play at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's going to be seeking revenge. It's going to be a very tough game. Uh, and let's say that happens, they lose, and then Michigan or Ohio, and then Ohio State comes in and beats Michigan. Uh, I love the talent on the both sides of the ball
Yeah.
For the Penn State side. Specifically like only Fashi, whatever the offensive tackle name is.
No, I know. Yeah, he's a beast. I know you're
He's
talking about.
he's the beast. Chop Robinson,
Yeah, Chop.
King at corner. They got some real studs on this team, and they always produce good running backs and wide receivers. I don't. I think they're being a little bit slept on, and I'm interested to see why you think they're overrated.
I just don't know who's playing quarterback for them. I have no idea.
We don't know who's going to play quarterback for any of these teams.
Exactly. That's true. That's true.
All right. Well, before we end things, let's get our top four. So
Yes.
I'm going to start with my top four. I got Georgia coming in number one overall,
Okay.
undefeated.
Okay.
I have Ohio State. I have Florida State, and I have USC. And I think the final will be Georgia versus Florida State. And I have Florida State as my national champion.
Okay. Okay. I have at one Michigan. I think they go undefeated. I think LSU 2 also goes undefeated. I think USC gets in, but they go 11-1. I think they lose to Notre Dame. And then I think Notre Dame goes 11-1 and they get in at the end of the season because they beat USC. And then I'm picking Notre Dame as my champion this year.
You know, to cap this all off, I think this season might be one of the more exciting ones.
I'm so pumped
in a long time because there's so much uncertainty and there's been a lot more crazy upsets as of recent, and it's the last Final Four that we'll have for the new playoff and the new conferences come about. So I think we're going to see some chaos, some March Madness like chaos this year, and I am super thrilled for it. I'm super thrilled to see who makes a name for himself. I want to see more crazy Marvin Harrison catches, but most of all, I'm glad football is right around the corner.
Oh, dude, I'm so happy football's back. A lot of week 1 games. There's week 0. There's only just like Notre Dame, Navy. Week 1, we got Florida, Utah Thursday night. We got Nebraska, Minnesota Thursday night. Colorado plays TCU to see how Coach Prime does to open up the season. I'm fucking jacked up. Shoot, Labor Day weekend's about to be fucking blast. Ohio State, Indiana, North Carolina versus South Carolina, and then it closes up on Sunday. We got a 5 versus an 8 LSU versus Florida State.
That is going to be a huge title implication, especially
Yeah,
for our pick.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's
then
gonna get hot right off the bat.
it's going to be hot. And a couple games I want to highlight. Um, FSU at Clemson in week 4 will be huge for that division race. Ohio State, Notre Dame, same week. Huge for the playoff implications for both our teams. Underrated matchup, week 2, Ole Miss at Tulane. Tulane is the highest ranked mid-major. And if Tulane wins that game against Ole Miss in any sort of convincing fashion, we could see Tulane maybe sneak in to the top 4. Possible.
Hey, I'm all for it. Honestly, I'm good with the madness. I'm good with
Yeah.
it.
We love the madness, but we love the fact that you tune in. Uh, Make sure to follow us on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, post us on your socials. More than anything, keep listening to us. And Chuck, what do you have to say to all our fans out there?
Um, Everybody, let's have a great week. Football season is upon us. We don't have to watch baseball anymore in our free time.
Fuck yeah, we don't.
Let's get ready. Fantasy owners, get your teams ready, get your shit ready. It's time to draft soon.
Hell yeah. And we might talk about fantasy pretty soon, but
Oh,
for
we'll have
now,
our pick'ems. We'll have our pick'ems.
we'll have our pickups, yes. But for now, thank you for tuning in. I'm Shoop.
I'm Chuck.